Hi everyone, Joe Mike here, and this is my review of that guy. This is the Matterhackers Pulse XE, and this is the video that I said keep an eye out for because when this one drops, I'm back. So, here I am. Gonna have some new content coming out, and it's gonna be fun. We're gonna be real low key. The production value is going to go down a little bit, and that's okay, because I'm going to go back to my roots, which is information, how-to videos, and if I do a review, it's going to be attached to a how-to video. So for example, I'm doing the review of this one, and I'm going to get into what I'm going to do to this one. But if I review products going forward, they will be attached to some form of project and how-to video that I have in the works as well. That is the primary reason why I started this YouTube channel, and I feel like I got off track, and I want to get back on track. This channel is not my bread and butter. I don't have to worry about, revenue coming in from ads and all that stuff to keep the lights on. It does help with being able to purchase things and, keeping the channel up and running. But as far as like keeping my family fed, this would be more of a hobby rather than an occupation. So we're going to do it Joe Mike way, and that's the way we're going to go and stay. So the polish and spit and all that stuff is going out the door, and it's just me, my camera, mic, and some lights. So without further ado, here is the review of the Matterhackers Pulse XE. Disclaimer: stay above board. I will always tell you if some deal has been made between me and a distributor, vendor, manufacturer in exchange for a review. And this is one of those videos. So Matterhackers gave me quite the deal on this guy. Didn't get it for free, but pretty much close to it given its price. So with that in mind, I just want to make sure that you all are all aware that this is a review in exchange for the amazing deal that they gave me on this to do the review on. So this is the Pulse XE, which it's just one model in a line of printers that bear the name Pulse by Matterhackers. The XE's bread and butter is all about printing the practical filaments, your nylons, your copolys, your abrasive, carbon-filled, glass-filled, all that stuff. It is built centered around that ideal, and you can see that from the design as we get closer in on this thing. As you can see just straight up, it very much has the form and function of a Prusa machine. So it's a Prusa style i3, and that just means that the bed is your y-axis, your x-axis is on the z-axis, raising up on lead screws. There's definitely some variations between this and a genuine Prusa, and I'll point those out as we go along. But for now, let's talk about some of the refinements that they have made on the Pulse series. Now, I want to make it perfectly clear that everything I'm pointing out is going to be referring to the XE model. And like I said earlier, there are a lot of models underneath the Pulse name. And the Pulse is a very customizable printer that you can actually build to order on the Matterhackers website, which you'll find a link in the description below. So the Pulse XE has some really neat refinements and some really neat things. First, let's talk about the hot end. So the hot end, your pretty standard E3D, genuine E3D hot end. You will find that it has an orbit sensor on it, which is like a BL touch sensor with a little pin that extends down to probe the bed instead of the inductive sensor that you would find on the Prusas. Now this is good, especially if you're using thicker materials on your build plate, like Garolite. Garolite's perfect for nylon, and this thing prints nylon like a dream. So instead of having to worry about an inductive sensor and the thickness of the material sensing the metal underneath it, now it's just sensing the absolute top of the surface and adjusting live Z that way. On the other side, we've got a little print fan. Now, this isn't your standard 50 mil blower. It's a little jobber, and I really am not sure of the actual size of this. It definitely has enough punch to get the cooling done. And let's be honest, most of the time when you're printing with nylons, you don't really need a whole lot of cooling. However, this guy's a little bit fatter, but a little bit smaller, but it still has enough airflow for part cooling if you want to print PLA on this thing. And opposite of the Orbit, you'll find a 30 by 30 millimeter fan, which is the stock E3D heatsink cooling fan. It's a little bit louder than the 40 by 40 fans that you find now on the Prusias, but still does a perfectly good job of cooling the heatsink. And finally, on the actual hot end, at the very tip, you have an Olsen Ruby nozzle. And that is the brass nozzle with the ruby insert, so you can handle just about every abrasive that is out there available for an FDM style printer. So carbon fiber, glass, wood, glow in the dark, the Olsen Ruby will take it and keep on going without any wear. It's a great nozzle, and it's included on the XE. By the way, I hope you like my Lazy Susan. Like I said, the production value is going way down, which means Lazy Susans. I'll still try to get some pan and camera footage in there from time to time, but this baby rocks. It's not just for passing the salsa anymore. You know what I mean? So one thing that you'll definitely notice here that sets this apart from a traditional Prusia is the fact that it is a Bowden setup. Prusias are direct drive. So whereas a genuine Prusia, you'd have your actual extruder gears and extruder motor mounted on this X gantry here, this actually has a Bowden tube. So it Bowdens all the way to the side here. Now on the other side of this tube, you will find a Bondtech extruder. So if you're not familiar with Bondtech extruders, you really should be. They're excellent extruders, and they give you dual hobbed gears that are connected together via gears, and provide excellent filament grip at the same time while not squishing the filament. Below the Bondtech, you'll notice that there's a 3D printed part. This 3D printed part is a simple filament sensor. All it is a skate bearing, a little bit smaller actually, that's resting up against a traditional in-stop sensor. So it can sense when filament goes in, and it can sense when filament's not in. Binary on-off. Feed into that to get to your Bondtech, and then out the Bowden. Below the extruder, you'll notice this little guy. This is the spool holder. So it's kind of nice and out of the way. You don't have to worry about anything mounted on top. You don't have to worry about finding a remote location to set up a set of rollers or something. This guy just simply sits right there, and then you feed up into the filament sensor, and now everything is self-contained out of the way and doesn't add very much vibration like a top mount spool holder does. So you won't find as much artifacting like you would with a top mount spool holder. Those of you sharp-eyed individuals will notice that this guy is exactly where you would expect a power supply to be on a traditional Prusia style machine. Well, it's not the case with this one, and I'll show you why. The power supply for this is actually this guy. So they are using an external power brick rated at 12 volts and 15 amps to power this whole machine. This guy goes straight into the control board at the back via, I think, a 4-pin connector. It's actually out of the way most of the time. So if you want to put this in an enclosure, which if you're printing nylons and other high-temp materials, enclosures are almost a must. So if you're wanting to put this in an enclosure, part of the problem with that is getting your power supply out of the enclosure, because you don't want that thing exposed to too much heat. They've already done it for you. All you do is run the wire in, good to go. The electronics in the housing, on the other hand, how they're pretty much handling that is lots and lots of holes. Some other refinements on this machine is a Vicky LCD. It's actually a Vicky 2 LCD. It's a beautiful, beautiful controller. Has a micro SD slot right at the top, so you don't have to mess with a full-size SD card going in on the side, wondering which way to flip it and trying to hit the hole. The control jog dial is very nice, very responsive, actually has a glowing ring around it depending on what the hot end condition is or the printer condition. So it has RGB around the ring. The screen is a high contrast inverted white on black. It's always been one of my favorite actual displays and controllers, and I'm glad that they put it on this printer. Some more refinements that you'll find on the Pulse series in general, especially the Pulse XE, is motor dampeners. So they actually have the rubberized gasket motor dampers on every single motor except for the extruder motor, which really doesn't need it. But even on the Z-axis, they all have a dampener. Y-axis, X-axis all has a dampener on it. So this machine's pretty quiet while it's in operation. I wouldn't say it's as quiet as an MK3 in stealth mode, just because it doesn't have trinamic stepper drivers. It's still running on the older Rambo board and not on an Einstein, so the drivers are still the old school drivers, but they help mitigate that with the dampeners, and they do a really good job with that. The heated bed on this bad boy is the MK42, which is open source. The MK42 is what came on the MK2 and MK2S variants of the Prusa machines. It's open source, so they were able to get it manufactured and put it on their machine as well. It's a great bed, very even heating. Now, it's not an MK52, which is what the MK3 has, so it doesn't have the magnets embedded in it. Instead, what you can do is, as an additional add-on, you can get the BuildTak flex plate system, which I would highly recommend, just because it gives you the opportunity of using the flex steel plates. And flex steel is just nice to have for many reasons, other than the fact that you can flex prints off the bed. It gives you the ability to get multiple plates and have multiple surfaces. So you can keep your Garolite for printing your nylons, because Garolite's awesome for nylons. But then you can have like BuildTak or PEI or PEI derivatives. You can even put a textured sheet on top of this guy, and that's just one of the beauty of the flex plate systems. Again, that doesn't come on the XE stock. It's an add-on, but it's a worthwhile add-on, and I'd highly recommend it if you're taking this machine seriously and wanting to buy it. There are a couple things on here I haven't quite figured out why, but I'm sure there's a reason. One of them being they have a small inductive sensor here on the X-axis, which is technically on the Z-axis, and it goes up to this little bolt up at the top, so it actually homes to Z max instead of Z min. And I don't know why they do that specifically, but I know that with the orbit sensor that they have on here, they could just as easily home to Z min, and that wouldn't be necessary. But I'm sure they have a pretty good reason for having that on there, or they wouldn't have gone through the trouble of putting it on there, hopefully. Other than that, it's kind of one of those things you just notice and then forget. Now let's talk about print quality. As far as print quality is concerned, not bad. I would say that for most part, I've seen better, but that also comes from the fact that this is a Bowden machine, and Bowdens tend to have a little bit of tolerance issues built into it inherently. I mean, you've got a 4 outer diameter, 2 inner diameter PTFE tube that's pushing 1.75 millimeter filament through it. That leaves a 0.25 millimeter discrepancy inside of the inner diameter of this tube for the filament to flex, and over a longer tube, that just increases that tolerance. So what you usually have to end up doing is really messing with your retraction to prevent it from oozing, and also really just dialing in every setting to get it to print. I could go on all day and night about Bowden versus direct drive and why I prefer direct drive over Bowden. I have another video on that. Other than the Bowden setup, which is really the bane for me personally of this printer, it's not bad. I've gotten great prints off of it, especially with printing the Nylon X. I mean, the printer was pretty much built around printing that stuff, and they did a fantastic job. Other than just the printer, which, by the way, comes fully assembled from Matterhackers, Matterhackers goes above and beyond with the way that they incorporate all of this. So when you purchase this printer from them, you purchase it using an account. So you come up with a username and password, and that is your Matterhackers username and password. Now they have their own slicer called Matter Control. And when you download Matter Control and you put those same credentials in that you used to purchase this printer, it automatically imports the settings they use to do the test print on your printer. That's pretty cool. That is actually really cool. So if you want to, this one came with a Nylon X little mini Astrofill on it, and the same settings they used to print that Astrofill were automatically imported into Matter Control when I logged into Matter Control. So if you're someone who doesn't really want to mess with much settings and all you're really wanting to do is print with the harsh stuff, right out of the box, this thing will go. There's one initial calibration to get the layer, your first layer height good and going, and other than that, you're ready to print right out of the box. And other than printing Nylon X and Rhino and any of the other crazy abrasive filled, Nylon G, which is glass filled, it will still handle your PLAs, your PETGs, your ABSs, and all of that. You might have to do some tuning. Let me rephrase, you will have to do some tuning to get your retraction settings and all that set up to print it without stringing and oozing like crazy because of the Bowden. But once you get it there, it prints it out nicely and it can handle any material you throw at it. So overall, if I had to stack this next to a Prusa MK3, I would say that they're very similar machines, but they are geared very differently. This guy's very much geared towards printing of the abrasive high functional part filaments, whereas the MK3 is more of a general printer, comes with a brass nozzle and a PEI bed. This guy comes with an Olsen Ruby nozzle and a Garolite bed. So you can definitely see that there's a shift in what you would want the printers for. As far as price point, I think you'll find that the Prusa is going to beat as far as price just because it's less expensive, especially if you get the kit. But you also get this perfectly assembled when you get it on your doorstep and pre-configured with a test print on the bed when you get it. So that in itself is worth a good deal. Not only do you get the printer with the XE, but if you get the XE Deluxe kit, you get 2 spools of Nylon X, which go and take a look at the price of Nylon X and you'll see that that's a good deal. You get a spool of Rhino filament, which is kind of like PETG, but not. Still trying to figure that one out. It's an interesting filament. And you get the print dry system. Anyone who has subscribed to my channel for a good length of time knows that I did a video about the $40 filament dehydrator conversion. And yeah, this is the actual version of what I was trying to accomplish. Now, here are the refinements that come into the print dry system over the system that I kind of hodgepodge together. One, you get 2 bays, so automatically you can hold 2 dry 2 spools of filament. 2, it has little knobs that holds the filament in nice and snug on a, well, lack of a better term, on a lazy Susan. What that allows is for you to feed the filament directly out of these little buttonholes into the printer and print while the filament is staying dry inside of here. That's pretty cool. This thing's great for also drying desiccant packets on the top with the metal ring and all the little holes in it. And this is included when you get the XE package. So to summarize, the Pulse XE. It's a nice printer, especially the package they've put together. What you see before you is about $1,600 shipped from Matterhackers. And again, that includes everything that I have told you about and Matterhackers support, which is great support. They really walked me through being able to use the printer with third-party slicers, firmware, and also dialing in print settings for PLA and PETG. So I can't stress enough how good their support is. The printer has some excellent build quality to it. If you take a look, you'll notice that everything that the cable management is ridiculous on this thing. Braided cable, sleeve, and then, yeah, wrap. Everything zip tied and nice out of the way. It's a well-built machine. I mean, it is. It's just a well-built machine. And I would expect nothing less from Matterhackers, especially at that price point. The only thing I would change on this guy is the Bowden. So that brings me to the project portion of this review. That's going away. I am getting rid of the Bowden on this thing. I don't like Bowdens. I don't know if I've said that yet in this video. Anyway, I have this really nice Bondtech up top, and then I've got a really nice E3D down at the bottom, and that's too much space. I mean, I can mitigate it by throwing one of these guys on there, a Capricorn tube. Smaller inner diameter means less tolerance for the filament to slop around in it, but it still is a Bowden, and it still is going to require crazy retraction amounts and crazy tuning per different filaments. Yeah, I'm going to convert this guy to a direct drive. I'm not sure when I'm going to do that, but you can bet that there's going to be a video on it. Who knows? I will probably end up borrowing some parts from the Prusa GitHub to get it converted into a direct drive with some modifications to accommodate for the orbit sensor and the smaller part fan, as well as somehow getting this Bondtech up there. I might end up having to scrub this Bondtech and putting it somewhere else on a different printer, maybe on my console, and then just using the Bondtech BMG offered by Bondtech. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the Pulse XE is just one printer in a large family. The cool thing about the Pulse is that it is a customizable printer built to suit. So if you go to Matterhacker's website and go to the Pulse page, you'll actually see that you can take a basic Pulse and throw a bunch of add-ons onto it and build it exactly like you want. The XE is pimped out, so it already comes with like 95% of the upgrades that you would normally add on to an original Pulse. Check out their Pulse series, because there might be a printer in there that catches your interest, or you might be able to build one that suits your needs perfectly. There's an affiliate link down below, and that'll take you to the Matterhackers website. Anything that you purchase through the affiliate link, I get a kickback of, and that will help my channel. And I promise that all of that money that comes from any affiliate stuff goes straight back into the channel. I don't use it for anything else. So one thing that I did when I first started this channel was keep an eye out in the community. So Twitter and Facebook, to see what issues people were having. Then I tried to create a video series or a video centered around that issue. Now, I don't have as much time on my hands to get into Facebook and Twitter to check out what kind of things people are struggling with 3D printing technology-wise. So if there is a video or anything that you would like to see me do a how-to video on, feel free to leave that suggestion in the comments. If you have any questions about the Pulse, the print dry, or anything else that you've seen here, if you have a Pulse and you want to comment on how you like it or what you don't like about it, drop some comments down there below. If you're not yet a subscriber, hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit the little bell next to the subscribe button if you want to be alerted when I do live streams or when I post new content. And speaking of subscribers, during the hiatus, I hit 10,000 subscribers. I know that there's YouTube channels out there that have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, but for me, 10,000 is a big deal. And so thank you to everyone who subscribes to my channel. And thank you for being patient with me while I had to take my little break to take care of baby and do my fatherly thing. I'm going to start reaching out to vendors and manufacturers and see if we can get some stuff together for a great giveaway. If not, heck, I'll just give away something in here. I don't know what. Maybe that. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, I think a giveaway is definitely deserved at the 10,000 mark, and I will work on that. Well, that's all I've got for you guys this time. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up. And like I said, I'm back. So hopefully this is just the beginning of some regular content. I don't know how regular that content's going to be. Probably every other week for a while. I need some content ideas. That's where you guys come in. Tell me what you're struggling with. Tell me what you need to see, and I'd be more than happy to shoot a video if it's within my power. So happy printing. I love you guys, and I'll see you later.